Day 2 of the Karen Read trial began with the cross-examination of Officer Steven Saraf by Karen Read's defense attorney Alan Jackson. Jackson questions Saraf about the dispatch log, an official document generated by the Canton Police Department. Saraf confirms his arrival time at the scene mentioned in the log, but Jackson highlights discrepancies in the order and timing of officers' arrivals compared to what was captured on Saraf's dash cam. Saraf acknowledges the inaccuracies. Saraf describes witnessing Karen Read performing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and had noted there was blood on her face. Jackson questions Saraf about Jennifer McCabe's actions at the scene, suggesting that McCabe engaged in conversation with Saraf rather than participating in life-saving effort. Saraf confirms McCabe's conversation with him, but emphasizes Read's focus on attempting to save O'Keefe's life. Jackson highlights inconsistencies in Saraf's testimony regarding what Read said at the scene. Saraf initially stated in his report that Read repeatedly asked the question, "Is he dead?" However, during a subsequent interview with Trooper Proctor, and in his testimony before the grand jury, Saraf did not mention Read's statement about her boyfriend not coming home. Saraf attributes the omission to oversight. Jackson questions Saraf about the evolution of his testimony over time, suggesting that his memory may have been influenced by subsequent discussions or preparations for trial. Saraf maintains that he testified to the best of his recollection. Jackson plays video evidence from Saraf's dash cam. Saraf is asked to identify individuals seen in the dash cam footage, particularly focusing on a person in a darker jacket who appears to walk inside the Albert home. Saraf acknowledges that during the dash cam footage, he observed a person walking from the area where the body was found on the lawn of a house, heading into the house. However, when asked if he knew who that person was, or if he gave anyone permission to enter the house, Saraf responds that he has no idea who the person was and that he did not give anyone permission to enter the house. Jackson questions Saraf about the protocol for handling witnesses at a crime scene. Saraf explains that one of the first things to do at a crime scene is to secure it and separating witnesses. He mentions that the purpose is to conduct interviews without allowing them to collaborate on their stories. Saraf emphasizes the importance of preventing witnesses from interacting unsupervised to ensure the integrity of their testimonies. When asked if it would be appropriate for a witness to enter a house and make contact with other individuals at a potential homicide scene without supervision, Saraf responds that he doesn't have an answer for that. Jackson highlights Saraf's failure to discover certain pieces of evidence, such as tail light material or John O'Keefe's missing shoe despite his observations at the scene. Officer Steven Saraf explains that he did not observe or locate any pieces of tail light material or broken plastic at the crime scene. Additionally, he did not observe or locate John O'Keefe's missing shoe or any other clothing belonging to him. When questioned about whether he considered looking inside the house for the missing shoe, Saraf indicates that it did not occur to him to do so. However, when asked if he thinks it would have been appropriate protocol to look inside the house, Saraf responds that it would not have been, stating that it would not have been appropriate for him or anyone else to conduct a search inside the house under those circumstances. Saraf is asked to verify Read's statement about her boyfriend on the dash cam video, asking him if he hears Karen say, "I left him, and he never came home." After multiple attempts, Saraf confirms that he couldn't understand what was being said. During redirect examination by Commonwealth Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally, Saraf's testimony is clarified regarding the dispatch log, defendant's statements, familiarity with individuals, observations at the scene and location. Saraf explains the process of creating a dispatch log in response to emergency calls. He emphasizes the primary focus on quickly allocating resources to the scene rather than meticulously recording dispatch times. Dali addresses Saraf's previous testimony regarding statements made by the defendant Karen Read. Saraf confirms that his memory of her saying, "This is my fault," is accurate both during previous testimony and during the events of January 29, 2022. Saraf confirms that he did not know any of the individuals involved in the case prior to the incident, including Carrie Roberts, Karen Read, John O'Keefe, or Jennifer McCabe. Dali questioned Saraf about whether he observed anyone from the address 34 Fairview Road, where the incident occurred, come outside during the time he was at the scene. Saraf confirms that he did not see anyone from that address or any other address on the street come outside during the entire 90 minutes he was present. Dali seeks clarification on Saraf's knowledge of the specific addresses on Fairview Road. Saraf confirms that addresses 32 and 35 would be next to each other, sequentially indicating his understanding of the street layout. Officer Saraf was excused from the witness stand. Officer Mullaney provided his employment details with the Canton Police Department, mentioning his shift from 11:45 p.m. to 7:45 a.m. He was dispatched to the call shortly after 6 a.m. on January 29th, discussing the heavy snowfall and weather forecast at the time of the dispatch. He described his route from the station to Fairview Road, where he found Officer Saraf and others on the scene, including the victim, John O'Keefe. The scene depicted O'Keefe lying face up on the front lawn, with snow covering the ground, and visibility difficulties due to weather conditions. He assisted the fire department in placing O'Keefe on a backboard and stretcher and spoke to witnesses, including Jennifer McCabe. He described Miss Read's behavior as screaming and asking about her boyfriend's condition. Other officers, including Sergeant Good, Sergeant Link, and Lieutenant Gallagher, arrived at the scene. Officer Mullaney noted changing weather conditions and the lack of observable injuries on O'Keefe. Miss Read was brought back to the scene and later transported to the hospital. Photographs of the scene were identified as consistent with his observations. During cross-examination by defense attorney David Yannetti, Officer Mullaney confirmed his employment details and arrival time at the scene. He observed a woman performing CPR, later identified as Karen Read, who appeared hysterical. He did not hear Read make any statements indicating guilt. Despite a search for evidence, he did not observe anything directly linking Read to the crime. He confirmed seeing O'Keefe's body, but no blankets on the scene, and was not aware of any first responders inside the house. He did not witness Read and McCabe together in a vehicle or communicating. Timothy Nuttall, employed by the Canton Fire Department, provided a detailed account of his extensive experience in emergency medical services, tracing back from his initial training as an emergency medical technician to his current dual role as a paramedic and firefighter. Under questioning from the prosecutor, Nuttall expounded on his work schedule and duties at the Canton Fire Department, including his involvement in snow clearance around the fire station. He recounted the events of January 28th and 29th, 2022, when he was on duty and responded to an emergency call concerning an unresponsive male discovered in a snowbank. Describing the challenging weather conditions of that morning, characterized by heavy snowfall and blizzard-like conditions, Nuttall detailed his preparations upon receiving the emergency call, which included equipping himself with turnout gear and organizing medical equipment. Upon reaching the scene, Nuttall and his colleagues discovered Officer John O'Keefe lying unconscious in the snow. They promptly initiated CPR, with Nuttall focusing on managing the airway, while his colleagues performed chest compressions. Nuttall recounted arriving at the scene and locating O'Keefe's body slightly left of center, with a small pool of blood beneath him. He estimated O'Keefe's distance from the roadway to be approximately 68 feet, detailing his initial actions, which involved assessing for vital signs and administering CPR. Nuttall mentioned utilizing a bag valve mask to provide ventilation for O'Keefe. He also noted the presence of a hematoma on O'Keefe's forehead and scratches on his right arm. Nuttall described the scene as chaotic, with several agitated individuals present, including 3 females, one of whom repeatedly admitted to causing harm. He observed blood on one of the females' faces, further recounting the treatment provided in the ambulance. Nuttall mentioned the utilization of a Lucas device for CPR and the insertion of an endotracheal tube to secure O'Keefe's airway. He remarked on the suctioning of various substances, such as blood, bile, and mucus, from O'Keefe's airway, noting the presence of cold and immobile digits on O'Keefe's upper extremities, indicating exposure to the elements. Nuttall also identified injuries to O'Keefe's right arm, which appeared congealed and devoid of active bleeding. Additionally, Nuttall mentioned the compilation of reports, with Anthony Flematti being responsible for the patient care report. He affirmed having reviewed Flatty's report related to the incident and identified photographs of the scene, confirming the location where O'Keefe was found and the presence of blood pooling around his head. In the cross-examination, Timothy Nuttall's testimony was scrutinized regarding his observations and actions at the scene where John O'Keefe was found injured. The defense questioned Nuttall's memory, attention to detail, and the consistency of his statements. Nuttall clarified that he was just starting his shift when he received the call and explained the typical protocol for handling clothing removed from patients in the ambulance. He noted that larger jackets were usually removed to better assess injuries, which was when they noticed O'Keefe's hands were rigid. The defense attorney questioned Nuttall's memory of specific details, such as the clothing O'Keefe was wearing, and highlighted discrepancies between his statements and previous interviews. Nuttall admitted to some memory lapses, but maintained his focus on patient care. Regarding the statement he heard from a woman at the scene, Nuttall clarified that he heard her say, "I hit him multiple times," while he was focused on providing care to O'Keefe. The defense attorney pressed him on the details of this interaction, pointing out inconsistencies in his previous statements. The defense attorney questioned whether Nuttall reported hearing the woman's statement to medical professionals at the hospital or law enforcement afterward. Nuttall admitted that he did not make such a report. Nuttall also acknowledged the limitations of his observations, particularly regarding injuries to O'Keefe's hands, which may not have been clearly visible due to their condition. Nuttall did not recognize a photo of the jacket when shown to him during the testimony. He stated that he couldn't recall the exact details of the clothing, but acknowledged that it appeared to be a thin cotton hoodie. However, he couldn't confirm if that was what John O'Keefe was wearing. Anthony Flematti, a lieutenant with the Canton Fire Department, provided testimony during the trial regarding a call he responded to on January 28th into the morning of January 29th. He detailed his extensive experience in emergency medical services, including his training and certifications as both an emergency medical technician and a paramedic. During his shift, Flematti and his team were tasked with responding to a medical call on Fairview Road. Due to a severe snowstorm, they faced challenging weather conditions with poor visibility and heavy snowfall. Despite the difficult conditions, they arrived on the scene within approximately 5 to 6 minutes. Upon arrival, Flematti observed 2 female individuals performing CPR on a person lying on the ground. He noted the challenging visibility due to the darkness and snow. Once on scene, their primary focus was on providing medical assistance to John O'Keefe. Flematti testified about the procedures followed during their response, including documenting arrival times and providing medical care to John O'Keefe. He explained that identification of O'Keefe occurred once they were inside the ambulance and able to conduct a more thorough assessment. Anthony Flematti direct examination concluded for the day, resuming Thursday, as there will be no court in session tomorrow. What do you think the biggest revelations were today? Has your opinion on Karen Read's guilt or innocence changed in any way? Write your comments below and compare them to others watching this trial. Make sure to check out our new CrimeSpies trial bomb videos, where we'll try to capture what we think is significant to this trial.